Well, Gerald Celente 3-4 years ago said World War III could be coming. Nobody else was really saying that at the time. I remember his Trends Journal. He's so good at it, he'll probably, without me even giving him time to do it, pull up the quotes. But I remember in his Trends Journals 3-4 years ago, he kept harping that when the economy starts to go down, they take us to war, and this time China, maybe even Russia, or vice versa. And I'm not saying China and Russia don't have their own corrupt problems. It's the exact same type of oligarchies. But the West is pushing it all. And the very same West is screwing us over. At least a long time ago, corrupt empires took care of their own people generally. And the spoils came back to Rome. The spoils came back to London. The spoils came back to Oosterbeek. But they don't even come back now. The globalists sell us out to other dictators, but then also try to keep them in check with military forces. So we got Bilderberg 2015 with the TPP in the background. We've got global government being exposed, these corporate combines, these illegal lobbying groups coming out. We've got the stock markets in trouble, the bond market's teetering, but they just keep pumping up the bubble bigger. There is so much to get into today with Gerald Celente of TrendsResearch.com. Gerald Celente is an American trends forecaster, publisher of the Trends Journal, business consultant, and author, and makes predictions about the global financial markets and other events of historical importance. Celente has described himself as a political atheist and a citizen of the world. He's appeared on everything from the Today Show to Good Morning America to Oprah Winfrey, CBS, NBC Nightly News, Russia Today, Alex Jones Show, you name it, TrendsResearch.com. And, boy, you read his spring issue. It's been on a while, and it's just spot on. Summer one coming up soon. Gerald Celente, again, joins us. We have defense intelligence documents coming out. And there's all this new news here, but it's just such a big deal that our government admits in Pentagon reports that our government set up al-Qaeda and ISIS in Egypt and in Syria, and now they want to, quote, open bases back up to fight them. But you watch, it'll be to just keep them in this new enclave. They're splitting Iraq up right now. They don't run ISIS or al-Qaeda. They funded them. They turned them loose. Now they're going to keep them in that area. Keep them in that zone. That's Saudi Arabia's reward for being behind 9/11 with the criminals in our government. Now, the media frames that as I'm not saying there's not radical Islamicists. There absolutely are. And whereas al-Qaeda, the old al-Qaeda was mainly synthetic, this new ISIS, they allowed them to recruit for years worldwide, is a bunch of idiot bots recruited by globalist intelligence agencies to be run by their psych warfare controllers who pose as imams. And they have Saudi Arabian, Turkish, and NATO money. And it just came out 2 weeks ago that the jihadis are putting out videos threatening InfoWars, official al-Qaeda, ISIS. I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. Joe Biggs is very proud of that. And they admit we're hurting their recruiting, and they're telling their people, do not listen to the American pig. We are not run by them, and jihad for us, yes. Because, you see, the truth is hitting them hard, so these teenagers and others understand that they're setting up the Middle East to be destroyed. They're setting it up for a clash of civilizations. So I've kind of set the table for Gerald Celente. I'll be throwing a lot of wild cards at him today, but Gerald, you're probably scrambling around with your stacks of articles and documents, but I remember you obsessively writing, actually 5-6 years ago, but the last 3 intensifying, about going to war with Russia mainly and the preparations for that and why they want war to basically be the smokescreen for an economic implosion so they don't get blamed. Now that it's all happening, I don't hear you talk about it that much. So break down why you saw that coming and where we're going.
Well, talking about it, we just sent out a Trends this week, just today. It went out, and it's about the Middle East. It's exploded. The world is at war. And you briefly mentioned it when you talked about Saudi Arabia. You want to talk about some radicals? How about those Wahhabis, huh? Aren't they wonderful? Hey, how come you don't hear all these people like Samantha Powers and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice and Condoleezza Rice and all of these women that claim that we should be in Afghanistan because of the way they treat women so terribly? but they have lockjaw when it comes to Saudi Arabia. I mean, the women aren't even allowed to drive a car, can't leave the country without permission from their husband, and on and on and on. They have no rights at all, but they're quiet about that because it goes back to what you're saying about supporting these radical fundamentalists. Because among the most radical are the Saudis. Hey, Alex, you know how they love to show those pictures of ISIS beheading a guy every now and then?
Yes.
What are the Saudis up to now already? It's only a half a year, and they broke last year's record in beheadings. They're up to about 88 now.
And it's what they're beheading people for, talking bad about the Prophet Muhammad or whatever. And look, if that's their country, a hellhole, they can do it. I don't want it exported here. And the left gets up there, Gerald, as you know, and says, we have to get rid of free speech because it might offend somebody. That's the whole point. I'm not out insulting Muhammad. I'm not out trying to troll the Muslims. But at the same time, if some preacher wants to do it, it's their right. Because the minute they take their right, they take Gerald Celente's right.
Yeah, again, and going back to this, though, with these Saudis, you know, they're behind a lot of this destabilization.
Yes.
They're the ones, the Arab Little League, with the others that started the war in Libya. They're the ones that are overthrowing Assad. You mentioned Turkey, and now Erdogan faced a defeat in Sunday's election in Turkey because the people there are tired of getting involved in these wars, particularly with Syria. And here's the big one. And this is what today's Trends This Week that just went out is about. It's not making the news, and it's going to spread throughout the Middle East. The Saudis are slaughtering Yemenis on a daily basis, bombing the place. It's the poorest country in the Middle East being bombed by one of the richest countries. And
one of the princes gave them 100 and something Bentleys to the pilots, calling them brave heroes, bombing towns with no anti-aircraft guns from 30,000 feet. I mean, that'd be like me stepping on a frog and giving myself a medal.
And me being the United States feeding you with everything that you need to crush them. So we have our Assistant Secretary of State over in Riyadh bragging that they're setting up coordination centers and cells to do reconnaissance, to do intelligence, to do refueling, and to assist them with the military-industrial complex to supply Saudi Arabia with everything it needs to slaughter these people. Now, this is why it's so big. When do you remember in our lifetime that the Saudis have launched a war against another country?
Never.
Never. So what they're doing is they're one of the largest arms buyers in the world. And now they're putting those arms to work.
That's right. Oh, I thought of that. They've been stockpiling and are estimated to be, what, 5th or 6th in the world for arms stockpiling. I'd forgotten that. And I guess now they're expending all those. I mean, they have a hell horde of weapons, don't they?
Exactly. So now, if you're a Yemeni and your family's just been wiped out, oh, and by the way, you have about 4 million of you guys working in the Saudi oil fields. You think you're going to seek revenge? So what we're saying is get ready for the counterattacks. The prostitutes, the media whores, they'll call it terrorism. It's getting even.
That's right. They're going to call the Shiites responding to be exterminated. And I'm not trying to lionize the Shiites, but compared to the Wahhabists, they really are the underdog and are always being attacked. And now when they strike back, they're going to be called terrorists, is what you're saying.
Exactly, because what they're going to start doing is they're going to start launching attacks on Saudi oil fields. Guaranteed. It's already beginning to happen. It's not making the American news. Number two, or the Western news. Number two, they're going to attack the, quote, royal family. I love how they give these names like, what are we, 6 years old? A royal family. You know what happened, don't you, Alex? A princess kissed a frog, and the frog became a king, and they're royal. Who's making this crap up? It's a dictatorship that was put in place following the breakup of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, as you well know, and your listeners do, with the Sykes-Picot plan. There was no Saudi Arabia. There was no Iraq. They made these countries up and put dictators in to run the joints, and now it's beginning to collapse. Why this is so important in Yemen? When the retaliation happens against Saudi Arabia, it's going to start spreading. It's going to go into Bahrain. It's going to go into Qatar. It's going to go into the United Arab Emirates. The Middle East is already in flames. Oh, and our commander-in-chief, Obama, should be brought up on charges of treason. He has lied about everything that he said when he was campaigning as the candidate Obama. But you remember that, this was the guy that was going to get rid of the Patriot Act, close Guantanamo, and most recently, our liar-in-chief last September, when we were going to save them Yazidis on the mountain, and I'm not going to put no boots back on the ground. The boots are flying back into Iraq. One lie after another.
And you predicted that. You said we'd put troops back in. Here's the headline today. U.S. prepares plans for more troops, new bases in Iraq, officials. And watch, they're going to split the country in 3 parts and claim they've made a peace deal with the new caliphate down the road, which is what the West planned all along.
And again, it's out of control. It has been for centuries. This whole Prophet Muhammad thing with the Shia and the Sunnis is going on since he died.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Shiites say that you've got to have a genetic line to Muhammad to be basically a priest, and the others say, no, anybody can be. And, of course, that group's the majority, 80%. About 19% are Shiite, another 1% are kind of these subgroups, Alawites, Zoroaster Muslim subgroups. But they hate each other just absolutely more than some of the radicals hate the West. And I see the West trying to start a Shiite-Sunni civil war. Looks like they're doing a pretty good job.
That's exactly it. They're creating destabilization in the entire area. They're pitting one against the other. And the people are the losers. You look what's going on in Syria. Syria wasn't bothering anybody. And you remember, this is what I love too, with the cover of the Trends Journal. We call it the presidential reality show. Liars, crooks, freaks, and fools. You look at Hillary Clinton now. This is the woman responsible for the overthrow of Gaddafi. And you remember that famous clip of her on CBS News asking how did she feel when they found out he was dead. And here she is. We came, we saw, he died. Anyway, going back to the fallacy of this whole campaign and what they're doing, now she's playing an Obama. She's playing Miss Progressive. She's playing peace and love. She's playing we're going to help the little peoples. On and on and on. In the meantime, and as Obama did as well, they keep pushing for more war. And I'm sick of this term that they use. Oh, no, these aren't combat troops on the ground. These are advisors. What does everybody have? Attention deficit disorder? That's what they called them in Vietnam.
What are other big areas you're looking at right now, other developments?
The big one is what's going on in China. You look at the oil imports that are going on there, they're down over 15%. You look at their export and import trade, down both of them. China is in a bubble. But here's what's going on. You talked about the volatility in the bond markets. There's volatility in the oil markets. You're seeing swings on the equity markets in the Shanghai index, whether it's the DAX in Europe. You're seeing 3 and 5% swings daily. There's total volatility. The only way this market has been propped up is by this cheap money, and they have no way out. You know, we had a conference here last week. One of the guest speakers was Nomi Prinz, who, as you well know,